On the Wire, in association with Ladbrokes.
Well, you're very welcome along. It is the On the Wire Goran Park Thyestes special in association with Ladbrokes. It's one of the truly iconic handicap chases on the calendar, the race that stops the county. And on the show today, we're going to hear a bit from Ted Walsh, we're going to hear a bit from Jack Kennedy, and we're going to hear a little bit more as well from Bryan Cooper, who was chatting to me yesterday at Down Royal. And we have some very special guests, so let's get straight to it on the Wire. So, as you will see, in the right top corner, we have Mark Boylan of the Irish Field. What's going on, Mark?
Oh, good, Johnny. Surviving the storms as we get through the weekend. Looking forward to a haymaker, hopefully at Goran on Thursday in an equine sense anyway. Looking forward to getting to Goran. Crowds just seem to flock to that place on that day, and super atmosphere. So if you don't get the chance to watch it on racing TV, I'd encourage you to get in the car and get down to Goran.
Yeah, Andrew Blair White, you'll already have heard in the Sting. It is a cracking card, Andrew. I think the first time I went there was possibly to see, I think Hedge Hunter might have won it the year I was there first. Was involved in a horse that ran in the race as well. What are your Thyestes memories, Andrew? Do we have Andrew? We might have Andrew on mute. We will see. Can you hear Andrew, guys?
No, I'm the same as you, Johnny. Can't hear.
No. Or maybe he just has no memories like myself. I can't remember what happened.
Well, I remember being involved, Nicola, in a horse, and myself and my girlfriend, she was driving, and we missed the turn-off. You know, the turn-off for Kilkenny on the motorway. So by the time we got there, that must have been 45 minutes out of the way. We arrived at the racetrack just in time for the Thyestes. I think they might have jumped. The horse was fairly well fancied, ran really poorly. We basically went home after the race, and we broke up a few months later. So there you go. There were some of my Thyestes memories. What are your memories?
What was the low point?
I mean, it was a long time ago, but you can't, like, some huge big names have won this in the past, including the likes of Hedge Hunter, which probably stands out. But admittedly, I've not been to Goran Park, so...
You haven't been at all?
No. Can you believe that? So maybe, like, I've been to nearly most of them, but Goran hasn't happened yet for me, so maybe tomorrow's the day.
I'm just looking, Mark. Hedge Hunter is 2004. Be My Bell won it the year before. I think it was the 2004 one was the first I was at, but you'll attest to this, Mark. Goran is very unique in that it is literally in the middle of the country. Like, Goran is a tiny village. It's outside the village, and it's kind of old school, and the biggest race day takes place during the week, real old school.
Yeah, and I like it, you know, and it is an event. It is a local thing. They all get behind it. And I think there's a lot of people, even I'm from Banagher and County Offaly, there's a lot of people here. It would be in the calendar for people in the country as a day, you know, a Thursday. People got it off school, you know, come down, really get stuck into it. And I also like as well, there's a bit of charm with this race. I know Willie Mullins has won it a lot. It's a local race to him. It means a lot to him. But we've had Liam Burke win it. We've had Paul Gilligan, Jimmy Mangan. You know, we've had yards that aren't, you know, you can get a fairy tale result in it at times, or, you know, inevitably with the ground been testing, we get kind of thrilling finishes at times too, real heavyweight bouts back and forth. So we got that last year, carefully selected. Thought it was an absolute worldly of a ride from Paul Townend, and I'm hoping he might be inspired for him again this year for my selection. But we won't get there yet.
Yeah, well, you're talking about Paul Townend. He's actually 19 in arrears now of Jack Kennedy at the top of the Jockeys Championship. And I'm just looking here, Nicola, at Jack's run of form coming into it. He obviously had a 4-timer at Down Royal. Prior to that, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. His last 8 rides, 7 of them have been winners. Only 2 of them were favourites. Some of them won narrowly. And it was interesting. Well, Nicola, just talking to Ian Donoghue yesterday, who's Keith's brother. Ian Donoghue said that Keith was happy to let Jack ride his brother's horse, St. Denis as well, at Down Royal, even though, you know, obviously Keith's his brother, because they're thinking of the Jockey Championship for Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is going to be another really exciting year when it comes to the championship. Jack Kennedy's on Dunboyne in the Thyestes. It's my fancy. For many reasons, which we'll get into shortly, I know, but wherever Jack goes right now, he's being backed.
Yeah, Andrew, that's been a fascinating aspect of it as well. He's 20. He's 20 clear if he goes one up at Goran on Thursday, and it is fascinating just to see that Jack Kennedy, when he actually gets a good run of it, he's not bad.
He's very good. Yeah. No, sorry about. There's been a few technical issues my end, so hopefully they're being ironed out. But yeah, no, he's been fantastic the last couple of weeks. It's been brilliant to watch. Gordon's horses are getting back in after maybe a week or two where they were a little bit quiet there. They're banging back to form, and you'd have to think his choice is going to be, a big plus in this for Dunboyne. Dunboyne's a horse I find hard. It depends what kind of way he comes out of the bed in the morning. Sometimes he completely jacks it in. Sometimes he's absolutely superb. I thought Fakir Delen myself might be the one of Gordon's to keep on side with Danny Gilligan riding. So it's hard. It always is in this type of race, but Gordon is mob-handed yet again, and you'd have to think Dunboyne has a very good chance.
What do you make of the race itself, Andrew? Like, it's a pretty cool race. Just saying to when you were getting your audio sorted there, like, it's a weird one because Goran is really in the middle of nowhere. It's outside of a tiny village. Its biggest race day takes place during the week, so you're kind of going back in time with it.
Yeah, very much so. But at the same time, I think that's what gives us its charm, that it's pretty much the only big meeting, big race that's on midweek during the whole calendar. And I think it gives that little kind of niche identity to it. And I think also the way, certainly in the last number of years, the weather has kind of played into the eeriness of it. There's been fog races, there's been lashing rain races. It's kind of added to the mystique of it all. It's a very local track, local people turn up in numbers, and I think that's the excellent part of it. I've been lucky enough to go down there a couple of times, and it's just a day that you just really feel kind of almost proud to be within the Irish racing circle, because it's just that kind of community aspect to it.
Nicola, how have you not been to Goran?
I know. I'm embarrassed to admit it, to be fair.
Yeah, there we go.
Busy woman. Remember, I was living in the UK for a very long time and racing always in the UK, so not home that long. So I just need to tick it off the list.
Well, okay, one horse who is on the list is Any Second Now, trained by Ted Walsh, and there has been a little bit of debate about Any Second Now is now a 12-year-old. He's had a hell of a career. Bit of a debate about where he goes from here. Obviously, he's had so many big days out. Mark Walsh is going to ride him, 11 stone 7. We have some footage of him here as well. This is him winning at Navan, going back. It's only last year, actually, winning in March of last year. And it's a really, really good performance. Mark Boylan, he's still a horse with loads of ability on his day if he can put it in.
Yeah, do you know what, Johnny? I was so tempted to have him on the short list here, and he put him up, I suppose. He is on my short list. Ability-wise, this guy is definitely better than 148. I know he's 12, but he's just not your typical horse. He's had, a nice campaign. He's always seemed to be trained for entry. He obviously went so close in 2022, bumping into Noble Yates. Hell of a run in circumstances. But just, I wonder what's D-Day for him this year. If he's a horse that they have been training, let's say, to peak for a day like entry, I'm not so sure whether they would put all the eggs in the entry basket again this time around. Would he be one for the Irish national when he has been so effective in the Bobby Joe? I don't know. But if it was D-Day today and, if there was market confidence behind him and you knew you were going to get the peak any second now, I think he's better than his mark. I think it's a drop in class for him against some of the tests he's had. Not necessarily a seasonal comeback. You can always entitle him that first run back. But like some horse for Ted Walsh, and the way he's been campaigned, like he's earned €500,000 in prize money, the guts of it anyway. He's won 7 times, but lots of graded races. No, look, I have huge time for the horse, and I'd love to see him win another big pot, but I just would love to know that this was absolutely D-Day, given his preference to target peak later in the spring, I suppose.
Two surprising stats here. Ruby Walsh actually only won the Thyestes twice on Jacadam and invitation only. But his dad actually won it as a trainer in 1991. Rock to Prince won the race. Brendan Sheridan rode. And I actually met Brendan at Downwile yesterday. But we are going to hear from Ted Walsh now. Just a short snip from Ted on Any Second Now.
I think he'll run well. He's in good old nick. He's 12 years of age now. Do you know what I mean? It's a long time since he won a handicap. The last time he won a handicap was the Kim Ewer off a 143 in England. He's now £7 higher in England than he is here. 11. He was when he won last year. He was a 160 going to run the national in Ireland, and he was a 167 in the English national where he pulled up in. And he wants. I don't know if he's capable of winning off a 148, but he'll run a good race. You know what I mean? He's a big weight in his back, and he's 12 years of age, and and he was getting older. He's getting slower.
You're not getting too slow.
No, but I wouldn't like to be trying to run the Thyestes now at the same time.
Yeah, well, it's funny enough. I have to say, it's great hearing Ted still have a good horse. It's also great, Andrew, the fact that you've Mouse Morris now with the Gold Cup contender, you've Martin Brasser with the Gold Cup contender as well, and he has sort of Longhouse Poet, who's obviously won the race before. And Andrew, I suppose national racing needs more characters of good horses.
Yeah, no, definitely, it really does. It's one of those where obviously a trainer like Martin Brasser we've seen in the last couple of months and a couple of years, he's so good at targeting these types of races. And when he won this race a couple of years ago, it felt like a plan. I'm not so sure this time out whether it's been that much. I'm not quite sure he's the same horse as he was.
This is him winning it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it felt like a long-term plan, beating Franco de Port here as well, who's a great one horse in his own right at the time. And as I say, I just wonder, it's a little bit similar to Any Second now. I just wonder how much of the real ability is still there. Potentially, if it is, he's still got a massive chance in a race like this. But I'd be probably steering clear from at the moment. He'd want to show a little bit more spark than he has done in the last few starts.
I think we have a little bit of footage of him winning at Downroy last year as well. And this was just part of Ananas Mirabilis, Nicola, for Martin Brasser. The year just kept getting better and better. Even when he was missing out in big targets at Cheltenham, he just won big race at Punchstown, Listowel and so on. And I suppose he's a trainer who doesn't court publicity. He lets his horses do the talking.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the race itself, though, Johnny, like for us, this is one of those big betting races, and a case to be made for so many of them. And it's a race where punchers can really grab, serious money with the each way bets as well. We've even had bets down on Max Charm that's been cut to 33-1 from 50-1. So it is one of those races where anything's being backed. Any second now, it hasn't come for money yet. It's in there at 14-1. But right now, head of the betting, Angel's Dawn 5-1. Of course, Cheltenham Festival winner last year. This race has been the target. She's only had 2 runs in handicap hurdle so far this season, and she should improve in that. She's going to be a very tough mare to beat, and I think she deserves to be favourite.
You see Bryan in the odds there, 12-1, and interestingly enough, Mark Boylan, the odds have, the race weights have changed. Bryan is now top weight. So as of a few days ago, Jack Kennedy wouldn't have been able to do the weight on Dunboyne. Now he will be, and we're just going to look at Dunboyne in the race last year here. This is a fascinating run. He was ridden on this day by Sam Ewing. If you actually watch early on in the race, check out Racing TV for sort of the early stages of the race. This is the closing stages where he's just done by carefully selected on the near side. Lots to like here, Mark Boylan.
Yeah, I thought he nearly had the job done, to be honest, Johnny, but he's a tricky horse to figure out, as Andrew has said, because, when he is good, he is very good. And, I don't think, you can see him here, he is trying hard. I don't think it's a case of attitude at times, but I think these conditions we've seen on this occasion, it is what he wants. Like, it's going to be testing the court. After all the weather we've had, we're going to get proper testing ground. It was soft to heavy last year. Probably going to be even more testing this time around, but that's not going to hold any fears for him. Like, even back as a hurdler, this horse was one that was talked up for nice prizes, Cheltenham Festival, handicap hurdles, etc. I don't think he'd be winning one of these pots out of turn, but I don't know if he's the sort of horse now that I'd be flying into battle with my life depending on it by any means. But Angel's Dawn is interesting at the top of the market because Sam Curling, I spoke to him earlier in the year for a national season preview, and I was asking about what kind of the bigger picture was for her, and the one race he came back to, it was at Thyestes, and when you look at how she's been campaigned, you get the feeling this has been the target all the way along, and again, it makes sense for her too, doesn't it? Because she's got that preference for ground. She stays. She's won at Kim Muir, hard knocking mare. And Sam, I'd have a lot of time for what Sam does. I think he's a real proper trainer. When he set his mind to targets, we see him in England go over with a couple of horses and make hay with them too at lower levels. But I'd have a lot of respect for her, Angel's Dawn, in a race, I guess, given they have put so much priority on the Thyestes for a fair way out.
Let's bring you back in, Andrew, because we've a little bit more footage here of Longhouse Poet. Of Dunboyne, rather. This is the win at Goran in 2022. Now, course form is very important at Goran. As I say, if you look back on the Thyestes from start to finish last year, he actually half struggled to lie up early. He was sort of vaguely on and off of it in snatches, but course form around here is obviously very, very important. He's only a few pounds higher than he was when touched off in the race last year, and you saw from the VT there, he practically won the race last year. He was ahead just before and after the line. But Andrew, you do make the point he is a little bit enigmatic.
Yeah, he's just a tough horse to work out. He's been like that for a while, as Mark was saying. He was talked up for a Pertemps. He didn't go a yard in a Pertemps at Cheltenham one year. He did the same in a Pertemps qualifier. I remember once at Leopardstown as well. He's just sometimes a little bit moody at the start of races. As a result, he begins to be behind the bridle, like he showed in the Thyestes. But he's a strong stayer. Overall, he's a pretty good jumper when he gets into that type of rhythm. So I always feel with Dunboyne, you'll kind of know your fate relatively early on. And if he's in that first 5 or 6, which is usually the sweet spot for these big competitive handicaps after a mile, you're in with a really good chance, because you know he's then on a going day and you know he's going to stay very well. And when it comes to the back end of these races, usually you see it, Goran, it's kind of deceptively far away when they go towards 3 out. And there's loads of horses in contention, and you'll go down to the last and suddenly there's only 3 or 4 in contention. He's the type of horse that won't be stopping. So it's really about the I suppose the early part and the mid part of the race for him more than anything, because he is the type of horse that sometimes can just get behind. And I think when he gets behind horses, he sometimes just goes, this isn't for me today.
Yeah, and if you do get behind on Thyestes Day, do remember to gamble responsibly and plenty of betting ahead. Let's hear from Jack Kennedy, though. All of the signs are very, very positive. Gordon's form, Jack's 4-timer down Royal on Tuesday, and here he is talking about Dunboyne.
The weights went up, so I'm looking forward to Dunboyne. Just touched off in the race last year. He likes it around there. I won on him around there early in the year as well last year, so hopefully he runs well anyway. Yeah.
What's the ground here?
It's very dead, yeah. A lot of old ground and things, so it's testing, yeah.
There was Jack Kennedy, and it's literally the form of his life, as I mentioned beforehand. We're just going to have a little chat. We get selections from all the guys on the Thyestes in due course. We're going to have a chat. Goran Thyestes Day is quite a unique meeting in terms of some of the races that they have on, and they do have the Red Mill DBF Ladies Auction Maiden Hurdle. We actually have a little bit of footage here of Captain Cody winning at Limerick. Captain Cody is going to be ridden by Jody Townend for Willie Mullins, and this is a race in which it's what's a strange thing, Mark, considering the opportunity for the lady riders here. 6 turned up.
Yeah, but you know what, Johnny? It's a team in Auction Maiden Hurdle. You have to be bought as a national hunt horse at a recognised store sale, I think, for less than €45,000. That confines it in one way. And you do see in ladies' bumpers at times there are smaller fields that might be for typical bumpers. I know that was the case for one at Tremor there maybe a month or so ago, but I think they're great initiatives. I think, more opportunities for lady riders over jumps. It's something that I would feel on the flat too. While we have Rachel Blackmore flying the flag as a real trailblazer, I feel the depth, I suppose, of quantity of riders coming behind her, you'd like to see more. So races like this can only be a help. I know they're not open to all lady riders. I think I'm correct in saying some of them have to have had, I think, something like 25 rides between point to points and maybe on the track to be able to ride. And maybe it would open up more if they open that window to allow more to compete. But I think it's a good incentive. And look, when Jody Townend is a rider that you have on your side in a race like this, it has to be a positive too. This horse was Captain Cody, was Jody's first ride at Cheltenham last year when he finished 6th in the champion bumper, ran a cracker like against a dream to share, fact to file. Like, it was, the champion bumper has actually worked out exceptionally well, hasn't it? And I know we haven't got to see a dream to share yet, but the collateral form of what's behind has looked really, really good. And I'm always forgiving of a horse that disappoints at the entry at the end of the season, particularly one who had been at Limerick on testing ground in January, had been in a bumper against Slade Steel at Punchestown earlier in the year. Again, that form looks really good. Look, it looks a golden opportunity. He's back from 285 days off. But if there's any man that you can kind of go in with confidence with after such a layoff, it is Willie Mullins. So look, I'd be keeping it very simple here. I think Captain Cody easily the one to beat.
Interesting. Any take on it, Andrew? I made the point for I thought Jody Townend should have gone pro. I think she gets a great tune out of horses, and she's a fantastic strike rate. And obviously Rachel was a flag bearer, but I suppose you can see the alternative as well. You're going to get good rides for Willie Mullins.
Yeah, I suppose so. When you're in a situation where you're going to get good bumper rides like she does, even riding second strings quite a lot of the time will be better than first strings at many other yards. And this horse would take an awful lot of beating, I'd have said, if he was to reproduce any of his good bumper form. I wouldn't make the market just quite the discrepancy between himself and the second favourite, actually. I think Back to Normal is a very good horse for Max Mums. Very impressed with his bumper win at Ballinrobe. Anya O'Connor is another excellent lady rider, you know, in these types of amateur events as well. So I just wouldn't think there should be maybe quite the difference, because I think there's a lot of upside too back to normal, and potentially if he's in a situation to give himself justice after only being, you know, him and Captain Cody have a very similar absence to overcome, both backing up from April last year, and there are going to be fresh horses here. So sometimes you get a little upset in this race, I've found, in years gone by, and it wouldn't surprise me if back to normal was to cause one here.
Speaking of lady riders, so just off the record before the show, Nicola said she's half tempted on following my route into a bit of cycling. Nicola, can I convince you over the course of On The Wire 2024?
I'm not sure this year, okay, but just if you just keep kind of pestering me, it could happen, and I might join you for one of your cycles around the country, because if you follow Johnny on Instagram, it looks pretty fun.
Well, there we go, and you should follow me on Instagram, obviously. Actually, Brian Cooper put me up yesterday. Got like about 50 new followers from it. Brian is the man, and he's going to come up after the break because I did speak to him, and we talk about Brian's retirement and all of that, and that's all coming up on The Wire. Bryan is yet to come, but we're going to also look at the Galmoy Hurdle now. This is a fascinating race. This is a race that I think you know, you get some good winners. It's a real test of stamina, and this Goran, it takes place at 2:15. Obviously honours John Mulhern. Mark, if you look at the winners down the year as well, presenting Percy obviously standing out. We had the likes of Zaidpur winning War of Attrition, Tiopu last year. What a cracking race we have year on year.
Do you know what, Johnny? Actually, you remind me of a good memory. I remember I was watching Presenting Percy win the Galmoy, and that was some crowd down in Goff for that. They had the van with Presenting Percy's face on it going around the track. And I remember watching RT from home, and I seen you trying to grab a word with Pat Kelly, and it was like watching loop de loops. You were going around the back of the horse. He was coming around the front of the horse. You think he caught a sight of you and says, "No, I go back here again." Pat was never a man for courting the press as well, and that was one thing that stuck out. You were absolutely putting yourself to the forefront for journalistic integrity, chasing Pat for the line, but I think now it was all in vain. I think maybe your Galway charm might have got over the line with him, but look, there's some brilliant results in this race down the years, and look at Monkfish, brilliant to have him back. It's funny, you talk about Brian Cooper generating followers for you. I find when you go to a Willie Mullins press morning, like a picture of Monkfish or a video of Monkfish, like the world seems to, you know, go a bit bizarre for it. There's a mad Monkfish fan club out there for a horse that we've barely seen, you know, in recent years, but
he's run twice since April 21.
He disappeared from the pandemic, Kevin. You know, I mean, he had more sense than the rest of us. But like on his day, what a horse! And you know, this day, Cheltenham, I don't even think we got to see the best of him, but riddled with ability. Look, at the fact that Willie Mullins had earlier targets in mind for him. He was mentioning the New Year's Day chase at Tremor de Savills as a target for him. Now he's coming here. I never mind that entirely. You know, at least it means he has been ready to go for a little while, especially for a horse with issues. You can imagine this sort of ground for a horse that has had problems. It's not going to present huge problems to him. I just think the Devil's Coachman, Johnny, I don't really like the price, to be honest. I'd rather get a little bit more juice in the price with the Devil's Coachman, but I think getting back up to 3 miles after the run against Sir Gerhard last time, if they view Sir Gerhard as one with Stayer's Hurdle ambitions, I think that was a fair run. Again, maybe not the easiest horse to catch right all the time, but he does stay. He's got form over kind of mid-range trips, you know, 2-5 at Navan, but that was all in testing ground. And he's won. He's been promoted to first in a 3-mile one novice chase. He's won over 3 miles. I think he's fine in terms of stamina, and I think he might just still have a little bit of upside to come in this division if they just set their minds on the fact that he is a hurdler. Chasing can be a little bit in and out for him. Farouk then ran really well in the Pretemps qualifier. This is a different ball game, but you talk about results that can be races that can throw up a little bit of randomness. This is one that can have that. So if you did like something at a price, I wouldn't forgive you. I do think the Devil's Coachman is the likeliest winner, but I just like it a bit more value than we get at the minute.
Yeah, Nicola, we see the odds there at the bottom of the screen if you go through them. This race, I mentioned some of the horses, it doesn't really have the feel of, like, we have some very good staying hurdlers in Ireland at the moment. They're probably just not here this year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a cracking little race, really competitive. I think it's going to be tough for, you know, Monkfish. He will have his supporters, of course. Punters go mad for him, as Mark said. He's in there at 3-1, and rightly so. He's such a talented horse, but he was well beaten at Punchestown following that long absence last April. He's on another break, and the trends don't bode too well for him on that front. But you can never dismiss a horse like this with his talent, and I'm sure he's going to come for support tomorrow. It is the Devil's Coachman for No Mead, who's the strong favourite at 7-4. Mark Walsh takes the ride, and we last seen him finishing second to Sir Gerhard at Punchestown ahead of Ashdale Bob. And, you know, he's got an impressive record over hurdles. He got the better of Ashdale Bob in the Boyne Hurdle last year as well. I think he's the pick of the bunch, although as Mark said, maybe doesn't represent as much value in such a competitive race. You've got Ashdale Bob in there at 7-2. I'm not convinced he's going to reverse the form with the Devil's Coachman, but he certainly adds that spice to the race, and a decent performance on New Year's Eve was had all the same. Frick Dalan is in there at 7-2 for Gordon, and Jack Kennedy again narrowly beaten in the Pretemps qualifier last month, 7-2, and yeah, he seems to be just hitting form right now, and I think is one to keep on side as well. But can we completely write off Somerville Boy? You know, the old veteran. He showed plenty of enthusiasm, I think, at Navan, and will probably come for a bit of each way support at 12-1.
Yeah, I could actually see that. I don't know, Andrew. I'd nearly just back Monkfish. He's only 9, just turned 10. I'm putting my faith in Willie Mullins in a trappy race. He's won the race with Morad, Zaid, for what am I looking at here? Shane's Hill, Benny Dedew in recent years. What's your take on it?
Yeah, it's a leap of faith. Going for Monkfish, I echo what Mark says about just how much of a following he has. It reminds me of Top of the Game for Paul Nicholls. People seem to love these incredibly big chestnut horses that are very fragile and hard to get right. I thought he was, you know, he obviously reappeared with a good second behind Asterion Forlange. That being said, Asterion Forlange isn't a perennial winner these days, and then disappointed at Punchestown. I get what the guys are saying in terms of the price of the Devil's Coachman. I actually think it's not a bad price. I think this horse won't be beaten in this race, to be honest. I think he's got everything in his favour. 3 miles, soft ground. I think he likes smaller fields, and that's the problem with him going chasing, was he's never going to turn up into being a Gold Cup horse, I didn't think. And you then have to run him in Troy Towns or Paddy Powers or whatever. And I'm just not sure ever. You know, there's been times before where he goes into those bigger fields, he doesn't look quite as home. As for in these kind of small field graded hurdles, I think there's a real niche for him there. He ran a nice race behind Sir Gerhard, but despite looking a little bit sticky at times, I think reverting to hurdles, sometimes you get that first time out. He should be sharper for that. I think you just look at the rest of them. I'd take on Monkfish. I'm not sure he's quite the horse he once was. Brooke Delaine was a long-priced second, so I'm not sure whether that shocked the Gordon Elliott camp as well. And also, as much as it was a very good run and he was conceding a lot of weight, he was running against Gway Cool and 9 Graces, who, you know, are kind of high 120s, low 130s horses. You know, it's a different kettle of fish here altogether. I don't think he's a very good price at 7-2. And Ashdale Bob, I think, would like a little bit of nicer ground. I know he can go on soft ground, but, you know, Goran soft and normal soft are 2 different beasts altogether. So, and Somerville Boy, I think, is probably past his best. So I just think you're looking at this race and coming back to the favourite time and time again. And I think there's an argument to suggest 7-4 is not a bad price. I think there could be in my mind, as much as there could be kind of almost sentimental money for Monkfish, it wouldn't surprise me if the No Meat horse goes off closer to even money.
Yeah, Noel said just that he's a quiet run of late. You will notice that Andrew is very much in the spotlight beautifully over his head there. Yesterday, Brian Cooper was in the spotlight, and let's hear from him at Down Royal.
I've been keeping myself busy, and I was kind of cautious of doing that because I read a lot of sports books, and you see when some certain people retire, they find it quite hard to get back and get going again. But I was lucky I have the place at home to always fall back on when I'm not. I'm busy at the sales. I'm kind of concentrating on the bloodstock side of things as well. So when I'm not at the sales, I can go home and give Dad a hand, give him if he decides to listen to the odd thing I say. But it's nice we can bounce things off each other, and his horses are running very well at the minute, so I'm delighted to be part of that team. I knew that was going to be my last year. I had that decision made. I didn't plan on going out in the way I did the Wednesday morning in Cheltenham, but unfortunately that happened. But no, I was very happy that I got myself back to a decent level. You know, I had a tough 2.5 years where I was very quiet and winners were hard to find, but I put in the work. I gave myself a kick in the rear end, if one would say, and got back going. And you know, I got supported by some very good trainers, Willie Mullins, the Nolans, Noel Mead at the back end of it. So I'm very, very content with that I did that.
What's the daily grind like for jockeys? It's not the easiest life at times.
No, especially being freelance. You know, I was very lucky. I had some great jobs, and when I look back now, it was a lot easier having jobs than being freelance, because being freelance, you have to get out of bed hoping you're going to get on a good horse. You're not committed to having them, so you need to be driven. You need to really want it, I suppose, and it is tough. But when you put in the work and the hard work, you do get the rewards. But it is hard to find a really good horse when you are freelance.
Just meeting your dad a bit racing. I know he's had a couple of nice horses lately, but I think he's really enjoying the fact that you're around more.
Yeah, it took him a while to accept that I retired. I think it hit him harder than it hit me as such, but because I suppose he loved watching me having success. But I do notice when I'm at home, he does listen, and you know, I've been in a lot of yards throughout my career, so I help him out as much as I could. But look, when he gets the ammunition, he knows what to do with it. So I'm just delighted to help out when I can.
What do you think you do?
I won't. I'll never commit to training. I won't do that. I want to be more involved in the bloodstock side of things and build up a nice maybe band of pin hooking. And sure, if I can get the odd little gig here and there with the media.
Geez, you weren't half quick to offer a bit of work today, now, yeah?
No. Actually, you have to be. I know. If I was as quick to offer the work when I was a jockey, maybe I might have done a little bit better.
How often do you still think about the big days you had in the saddle?
Whenever I'm in really bad form.
Really?
No. Look,
do you know, like, yeah.
You always. I have to look back and like I had an unbelievable career and I was very lucky. I rode some incredible horses, like 9 Cheltenham Festival winners, and it's only when I look back now and see other riders how hard it is to ride Cheltenham Festival winners, like to be part of horses Don Cossack or Connor, Don Poley, like Apples Jade. Like I kind of forget sometimes I had the choice of horses I had to ride for a while, so I realise I was just very lucky to be in that position.
Just reacting to that, Mark, it's I suppose it's still a mystery to people why Bryan would have retired when he did, but I didn't get the impression yesterday he was unhappy with the decision, and he said he never commit to training, so he'd probably end up training.
He has too much sense for that. He has too much sense. I suppose, Johnny, I would have immense respect for anybody that makes a call that goes against convention like that, but it's for the better of themselves on a personal level. Because the easiest thing to do for anybody in any line of work or any job they're in is to stay going on the one path just to for the sake of staying at it. And when you're riding racehorses at 30, 40 miles an hour, when your life is at risk, basically, and you're putting yourself in a very extreme environment, if you aren't sure, but this is for you, you know, you are not just putting yourself, I suppose, in a tricky spot. You're putting those around you as well. You're putting staff that are putting a lot of effort into it. Trainers, people's livelihoods are involved. I think the call that he made is one of, you know, it's one of real courage, one I have immense respect for. And I think, you know, for any rider out there, you know, being a jockey is an unbelievable vocation. It's an unbelievable life. I'm sure the thrills that guys that when they retire to find it again is going to be very, very difficult. But there is life outside of racing for these guys too. And I think if Bryan seems to have a good balance on that, you know, and if he is exploring different avenues in racing, I'm delighted for him. But I think, you know, Davy Russell made the point after he finished up that he would love to be maybe better equipped for the next stage that comes. I think HRI are trying
better equipped. He's gone Dancing with the Stars.
Well, he's better feet than I do. Jeez, he's flying it, Johnny. But maybe in a logistical sense, I suppose, or, you know, people that could train it to do different things. But like I'm not worried about Davy. He's more than able to, you know, he's good in his feet in more ways than one. But you know, I'd have a lot of respect for anybody who steps away, because it is, you know, it's life, it's everything. You hear Dennis O'Regan speaking about when he retired. You know, it's consuming your every thought, from the first thing you get in the morning to everything you eat to everywhere you have to drive. Like, it is an unbelievable ask. I think even as professional athletes, you know, you see boxers obviously have to mind their weight, but, you know, they have the weigh-in, then they have the chance to, you know, you can do what they want, they can go out and fight. Like, to riders to be performing at so far below their natural body weight, to have to make those split-second decisions that are, you know, worth millions of euros in the balance, you know, I think it's incredible. I think it's underestimated at times, but, you know, if it's not for you, and it's absolutely not for everybody. It's not for me, I can assure you, both in a physical sense and a mental sense. I don't know how they do it, but I have immense respect for anybody. And I think in any walk of life, if you're not happy in what you're doing, within reason, I think if you can make the bold call to step away, especially for someone in Bryan's position like that, he had, you know, a lot stronger eyes than a lot of guys would have that are plucking away and playing their best. But no, hats off to him, and I hope he finds happiness in whatever venture he's doing in the future.
Nicola?
I was going to say, step aside, Dr. Phil. Mark is a... that was just completely enthralled there.
You more Dr. Phil than Phil Smith anyway, yeah.
No, so I worked with Bryan actually recently when he retired, and we did some work together, him and Paul Townend, and he did the media stuff for us, and he was great at it. And as I said, like you cannot criticize someone from retiring from such a dangerous sport. He's achieved so much, and just wish him the very best with whatever he decides to do, and hope to see him doing more of the media work, and that the opportunities are there for him.
Andrew.
Yeah, no, I think it's just, as Mark was saying there, it's so consuming. And I think we probably underestimate for some of these guys how consuming it's been for how long. You know, I know Brian Cooper's a very young man, but he'd have been consumed by racing since he was born, really. His dad's been a very reputable trainer for many years. He'll have been on horses from God knows what age. And he was then the Gigginstown retained rider aged 18 or something like that. An awful lot of success has come very early in his career. And I've got an awful lot of respect, not only for him to have the career he's had, but when he had that dip, and I think a lot of people wrote him off. A lot of people went, you know what, he doesn't have the ability. I think he said it in the interview, he had to give himself a kick in the rear end. Very hard to do that, very hard to have the justification to do that, given the success he had. But I think almost two of the most, you know, winners that would have given him the most satisfaction would have been that Grade 1 on latest exhibition, where he'd been off the top table for a few years, and to get that for the Nolans, that gave him a kind of a way back in and gave him a horse or two, a decent horse or two to ride. And then obviously Mrs. Milner in the Pertemps, you know, when, you know, that was another huge day for him, you know, and a huge day for him to kind of have that final taste of the success at Cheltenham, which I know he loved from a very young age. So I think the fact that he was able to give himself that kick up the backside and go, I want to do this for a little longer, and then to have the ability to, I suppose, say last year, this isn't for me anymore.
Nice words from all three of you. These might not be for you, but let's get them, the naps. And me and Nikki actually have gone with the same one. We'll go back to you, Andrew, though. Your nap for Thyestes at Goran.
Yeah, well, I'm keeping it in the big race itself. I'm going to go for Fakir Dalen. I think he's got a very interesting profile for this. All three of his wins have come right-handed. He was a very good third in the Troy Town at the start of the year before being brought down early on in the Paddy Power. You look at his form over the last 12 months, the only two blips have been being brought down in the Paddy Power and brought down in the Irish National. It's pretty rotten luck, to be honest. He's off an unchanged mark of 142. Danny Gilligan takes the right. He's a fantastic look for Gordon in these big handicap chases already this season. And I think he's very nicely weighted. He's in and around that 10-1 mark. I think he's a very good each-way bet.
He's already won the Galway Plate. He's already won the Troy Town, and maybe Danny Gilligan can win the Thyestes, which would be utterly ridiculous for a conditional in this season. If he doesn't do it, will Jack Kennedy do it, Nicola?
You know, it's really hard to be too bullish when it comes to a race like this and be like, yeah, I definitely think he's going to do it. I was torn between Glengooly and Dunboyne, but Dunboyne just ticks a few more boxes from me, just in the sense that, you know, Gordon Elliott, Willie's has an amazing record in this. Gordon Elliott does too. But this is his main hope. I think he's going to go one better than last year. He was hampered again at Navan, but he finished well in fourth. I don't think this renewal is as high class as last year. You know, he was the pick for Jack Kennedy. He stays. The ground will suit. So, yeah, I think he's going to reverse the form with Angel's Dawn.
Okay, so I have to be honest. I prefer backing with Ladbrokes on a Friday night with 4 each-way places on the 0 to 60 at Dundalk than I do in the Thyestes. I find these races difficult. Generally, I'm wary of them. These lads have nothing in hand. These ladies have nothing in hand. But Dunboyne just looks the most likely winner to me. I think he's a bit of a character, but Jack's in unbelievable form. If he ran his race last year, he'd be banged there. 100% he'd be banged there, even off a few pounds higher. So Dunboyne for me. Mark Boylan.
I haven't been as bold as you guys in nap on the Thyestes. My nap is going to come in the first race of the afternoon. A horse of Owen Doyle's called Listen Here to Me, Jack. Won of this card last year, and you know, you get the feeling this has been the target all the way along again. And first run back after a long absence last time at Fairyhouse, he was beaten 22 lengths, but it was eye-catching to a degree. You know, watching it through the prism that he was relatively unfancied. You know, he was coming back and he was going to sharpen up for the effort. I thought there was definitely a positive take from his first run since February 2023. I think he still has a bit of spark to him. He's a few pounds higher than last year, but Shane O'Callaghan takes off 5 this time around. That'll help his cause. And testing ground, he absolutely swims through it. You know, you have that up your sleeve too. So listen, I know he's 9, he's not a spring chicken, but off 102 in a race like this, I think he makes loads of appeal. Listen Here to Me, Jack, in the first. And because I haven't gone up for my Thyestes nap, I'll give you my 2 for the Thyestes if you want right now. I promise it wasn't me, Nicola, taking the 50s Max Charm, but I'm going to put him up from an each way perspective. This horse, I've had it on my mind for the Thyestes for a long time. I think when Colin Murphy won the horse one at Fairyhouse at the Easter Festival, this was the race he mentioned. I think he takes a few runs to run himself into form, and a huge price here. This is his track. This is the ground he wants. This is the trip he wants. Now look, he disappointed in the Paddy Power, but I will reference a really good piece of analysis from my colleague Tony Keenan in the Irish Field. Max Charm raced right down the inner in the Paddy Power. I think there were 7 chases over the last 3 days, the Leopardstown Christmas Festival, and 6 of them were won by horses all on the outer. Factify was the only one who raced anywhere, not down the outer. Paul Townend, all his rides wanted to stay outer. And if you look at horses that raced down the inner at Leopardstown, remember all that rain that came at Christmas? It was unheard of for Leopardstown. Down the inner was not the place to be. And I'm willing to give Max Charm another chance from that perspective. I think you're getting rewarded at the price, 33 to 140s. But Glenn Gooley as well, look at he from a shorter price one, I think he makes sense too. He's won on this car before in the ladies' maiden hurdle. And I thought the run last time at Limerick, that form was worked out pretty well. Falco, Blitz, even Captain's Nephew looked like he had the race won at Down Royal the other day. I don't know whether wind caught him or what it was, but he had the race in the bag. Ben Gooley is your likeliest winner, but I think the value horse you have to back each way is Max Charm.
Brilliant stuff, Mark. And listen, thanks to everyone for coming on today. Thanks to Andrew and thanks to Nicola. As Mark says, if you're not watching on Racing TV, and remember that all of the races in Ireland, biggest racing calendar we've ever had is all on Racing TV this year, and you can get a free 1-month trial on Racing TV. Head to racingtv.com/free trial. The Irish Derby meeting as well, among others, also all exclusively on Racing TV. And if you're not watching on Racing TV, go to Goran. It's an absolutely cracking meeting. Thanks to Ladbrokes for sponsoring. It's a fantastic Thyestes ahead, really open and really deep. I've been going to Goran for about 20 years now, never get tired of it, and best luck on the day, and thank you for watching and listening.
On the Wire, in association with Ladbrokes.